Well, let's talk about the governor's address. From your colleagues, I'm sensing a sense of optimism here from what they heard today. Bipartisanship, reeling in the budget, and trying to live more conservatively in the state of Connecticut. Let's get your reaction to what you heard.
You know, Jeff, I think that the governor surprised all of us with this address today. It certainly had an air of optimism to it, but I think that we should be a little cautious in jumping too soon into the drinking the Kool-Aid, if you will. This is a framework, okay, and there are many details that need to be ironed out and explained and understood before any of this becomes policy for fiscal policy for the state of Connecticut. This is not deficit mitigation. Okay. This is really what I see is finally a governor who is listening to what Republicans have been saying for 10 years in Connecticut, well before my time in the State House, that things like cost-based accounting and getting rid of programs that don't work, a constitutional spending cap, doing things that make common sense and not spending more money than we bring in.
Do you see any red flags?
Well, I think one of the ones that we could not reach consensus on during the special session was the constitutional lockbox. The last time you and I spoke, we talked about the Mixmaster in Waterbury. Mm-hmm. We know it's beyond its useful life. It's certainly not dangerous per se, but it needs to be fixed. It needs to be modernized and upgraded. If we're going to implement what the transportation panel described in its meeting a couple of weeks ago with respect to raising the gasoline tax and putting tolls on our roads, we have to ensure the people, we have to ensure the public, the taxpayers of this state, that money is going to go into that lockbox, and the only time any of it comes out is to pay for transportation infrastructure in this state. If we don't do that, then it's just like every other time when we've made promises, and the Democratic majority has made promises where we've collected taxes and we've spent it on something else. And that's a big red flag for me.
Is that transportation lockbox getting bipartisan support right now? And by lockbox, we should tell our viewers that basically any money geared toward transportation goes only to transportation.
Correct.
Can't be used for anything
Correct.
else.
What I can tell you with respect to bipartisan support, the bill that came before us in the special session passed the Senate unanimously. When it got to the floor of the House, there were 100 of us that voted in favor of it, and I forget how many were in attendance that day, but the balance voted against it. So what we needed in order to make this a constitutional amendment, and in order for it to appear on the ballot in 2016, was a true two-thirds majority in the House. It passed in the Senate unanimously, so we were okay there. We did not have a two-thirds majority in the House. But because we had a majority vote on that, the bill has the right, if you will, to be brought back out in this session, and I'm sure it will be. And I think with the right adjustments, we could see we might see unanimous support in the House for this bill. It's one of the things that I have been a very strong advocate for. It's something I campaigned on a couple of years ago, is that we need to look at some of the state aid that we provide, okay, and some of the fraud that takes place in these systems. And some legislation that I proposed and my colleagues have proposed brought some very common sense ideas and ways to do that. And unfortunately, they don't get they have not previously gotten any support. We may be with this change in approach by the governor, we may be more open to that type of legislation this session. I certainly hope so.
Bring it home to Watertown. You've got a steep grant, a small town economic assistance program grant.
We did.
Do I have that right?
That's exactly right. Good for you. You should run in the next cycle, Jeff. The steep grant that was awarded to Watertown was for $200,000 solely for the purpose of repairs to our Company 2 firehouse on Buckingham Street in Watertown. Okay. It's an old building. It needed repairs. This was a great opportunity and a great use of this type of grant.
It's up the top of the hill to serve the eastern part of Watertown.
Exactly. Yeah. It's right up there on top of the hill. We also provided some relief of about $400,000 to some bonding issues that were going on with a reconstruction of one of our schools. And in Woodbury, we brought home a grant for $1.5 million for the town of Woodbury to acquire former water property land, and that land will forever be open space in Woodbury. So some really nice things that went on to preserve as you know, what is so beautiful and what makes Litchfield County the greatest place to be in Connecticut.